So that is, what role, if any, can Sikhi itself play in dealing with mental health issues? Again, that is, what role, if any, can Sikhi itself play in dealing with mental health issues? This is in relation to things that are known as beneficial to mental health issues, like meditation, like having a positive community support around you, and things of that nature. We'll first off actually start with Baljit Singh. If you would like to address what we can do in regards to Sikhi itself, what role it can play in dealing with mental health issues.
I still feel that we've not done enough work and not tapped into Gurbani enough to actually look at how to deal with different cases of mental health and how to deal with them. So generally, soon as you come across someone in the community and they're not going down the route of taking professional help, one of the things that will be said to them is to seva karya kar, okay? Go and wash the dish at the gurdwara, or, you know, and all these things, yes, they will be of aid and they will help to some extent, but before that step is taken, still there's that initial step to be taken where that person is assessed and looked at what they're actually experiencing. Because what can happen is, what a lot of the families will try and do is, because they can't cope with them, they'll say just keep him busy, and everyone will keep saying inu busy rakho, keep him busy. Okay, so what they could be doing is that they're in a gurdwara set up and they just left there with no one to understand them, and they could be washing the dishes there for 6 hours a day, but their thoughts are still running 100 miles per hour. So they've actually not switched off at all. So if somebody is actually experiencing intrusive thoughts where they can't get a grip of their thoughts and they're constantly living in the past, we've not even assessed them to say at what level help do they need. Is it going to be community work, sending them out with the likes of our brothers and sisters of SWAT and helping out there and saving to the community? Yes. So for one set of person, that might be the forward, but and then what you'll often get is Bani padya kar. But if anybody's actually gone through that motion of, like I said, having your mind taken over by intense thoughts, you can't actually focus and read. So I know, and our professionals will know this, and when somebody goes through CBT, that when they fill out a questionnaire, one of the questions will be, are you still able to read? And because your actually mind gets to a point when you're not able to read anything anymore. So we're just throwing people out and we're becoming those experts and saying, God, but we don't know what their problem is yet. So if they can't even read Gurbani because they've gone too far, and so that's not the solution for them anymore, but there might be someone that it's not reached that level yet, so they might be able to, yes, tap into Gurbani and then read it mindfully and contemplate on the words. So there's many things when we talk about, okay, what is in Gurbani? In Gurbani there are something called Jugtiyan, and Jugti means a way of doing something, and Gurbani will tell us, somebody says to you, Naam japya kar, go and recite God's name. So do you know that you can actually start reciting God's name, but your thoughts may still not stop? So your actual Simran, what we call Simran, could be what your thoughts are. So what you're actually thinking of, because Simran means remembrance. Your remembrance still might be what you've just gone through, what your trauma you've just experienced for the last 5 years, but your tongue's saying Waheguru. So we're doing, the job's being half done. And that's why, for me, the solution is what we're going to talk about in the fifth question. And that's what we need to look at then. We need to assess people where they're at and what actually is needed for them. And yes, definitely the answers are there to help mental health for what the gurus have provided, and whether that be through seva or whether that be through reciting Naam, but there's a methodology of even how to recite Naam within Gurbani. So Gurbani talks about Gaviye Suniye Man Rakhiye Pao, which means you have to actually be mindful of even the word you're saying. So if you're not, it won't have the same effect. So if you're even not listening back to the name you're reciting, your focus won't be there. So you're not going to be able to get a grip of your mind. And if you are able to follow the system that is in Gurbani, then yes, you will be able to things will start to work. So what I'm saying is, it can't just be, it's got to be sat down on a Bantik level, and which isn't out of reach for us. We've got professionals here that have Sikh background, and Guru Sahib's given me the platform to work with an organization to have some form of understanding of Gurbani. We could actually collectively sit together and make a program according to Gurbani and what has been already discovered of the mind in the Western field, and but it's only things like Gurbani that will tap into and telling you straight there's a link between the likes of gossip and anxiety. But which professional is going to tell you that? They're not, because like I said, I've been through personal experiences. I've been to professionals. No professional actually sat me down and said, Baljit Singh, tu kate gap shap ta nahi launa jahdi. But my guru does. And we forget that mera bad guru Gobinda, that my guru actually is the biggest doctor of all doctors, and he's actually the creator of the mind. He's the creator of compassion, but he's the creator of jealousy as well. So he knows exactly what affects the mind, and the Gurbani's first question gives us the answer to dealing with mental health. The first question in Gurbani is how do I break that veil that is dividing me and with my creator? And Gurbani says that hukm rajai chalana, which basically means that you live in acceptance and you take his will to be sweet. So the first thing is, when we live in non-acceptance, that's where everything starts to fall apart. Where we're not able to accept something of the past, what will happen is there'll be a rage, there'll be anger. From anger, there'll be frustration, but these are very high energy emotions. Anger can't last very long, and that will turn into sadness eventually. At this point, it still won't be picked up, because anger is not looked upon as, mental health. But it's come from non-acceptance, and then eventually when sadness goes on for long enough, those low moods, it'll turn into depression. But then really, if you look at it, really, and this is someone that's experienced something, and I'm still got the confidence to say that really then that's an illusion, because the problem sits there, was the non-acceptance. We got to get back to there, and that was the first question and answer and solution in Gurbani. So everything's going to be worked around that. So that's the looking forward.
So I think what we're getting from that is that Sikhi can play a role with structure and with guidance from mental health professionals. I want to open it up to the audience before I hear from our other panelists. Does anyone here have experiences, whether positive or negative, of how Sikhi has played a role?
For so long.
Which one?
Vijay's wanted to say something like that.
So if we could pass the mic to Vijay. So if anyone would like to detail their own experiences of how Sikhi has either, or somebody's advice from within the Sikh community has either negatively or positively helped you deal with a mental health issue.
So I wasn't going to answer that question, but I was just going to make another couple of points if I can. So I think you touched upon how we could help people, and you talked about them doing seva and simran. But what would you do in a scenario where they're not self-accepting, or they don't realise that they've got a problem themselves? And how would you try and help that person, if you like?
I think, Vijay, sorry just to kind of butt in there, but I think everyone here has held their hands up that at the minute there isn't those structures, and part of this is implementing those structures. So I do feel that we've kind of addressed that, and just looking,
That was the initial assessment needs to take place. So first recognizing that somebody isn't even willing to use those avenues to be worked on, or those might not be an option for that person because of how the severity of their mind at that point. So again, that's something that needs to be worked on and structured to say, so if we've got that scenario, that scenario, that scenario, then what is the avenue for that? What is the avenue for that? And what is the avenue for that?
But even prior to that is just to kind of be approachable, be non-judgmental. These are the things that are real barriers in our community right now. The judgments is a really big one, isn't it? So being judgmental, being humble, dropping the ego, listening, not just hearing, and being approachable. You know, just kind of being loving,
I think
warm.
you're absolutely right. And the other point I wanted to make was I'm a governor of a Sikh faith school, and I hear about these problems every day from our own community, and it's a huge problem. So I think for you to set up the structure is really good, but a good place to have some of these discussions would be in some of these schools as well.
Yeah, of course.
When you're putting those in place.
Just echoing on your point made before, I get to see loads of people, and we work in relationships, we work on individual basis. And I can probably echo with some people who said, I can't work with someone who doesn't want to work with me. Unfortunately, my magic wand is out of its batteries, and it's going to have. There is no physical. You can sit in front of the best therapist in the world, but if you're determined for it not to work, it's not going to work. And likewise, you've got to have that understanding that you want it to work for it to work. Whether that be sitting in front of a Western therapist or sitting with a Pracharak talking about Gurbani. You have to have that emphasis to believe in what you're doing is actually going to help you. Otherwise, you're just going through a rat race.
There is a certain thing that we could do. When what you mentioned, it reminded me of how we deal with that at work, and thinking about how we're interacting with people. And I suppose we have this thing where you talk about insight and how much insight and how much willingness does the person in front of you in a therapeutic situation have. And sometimes there isn't that. And I think one kind of like maybe one small step towards managing that is you being able to accept them in their non-accepting state, however they are, for you to accept it. And something which we talk about a lot is holding someone's hope. So when someone isn't able to do that and they are in a difficult place, and you can see maybe a little bit more of a sort of holistic picture than they are able to, then for you to be that person, to be able to hold that.
Yeah, that they deserve to live. If they're suicidal, for example, they're completely hopeless and they've tried all methods.
Sorry, just with
I want to add to this. This is 1
as
minute.
quick as you can.
Very quickly, to add to that, so from what you're saying and what Benji said as well, so even if they're not willing to work, but sometimes, the person that's sitting in front of them has got such a positive aura about them, and that positiveness, something I've experienced when I've been at my absolute lowest, when I thought it's too late, there's no hope, and there's no forward. And I can't work with anyone because it's too late. But I've still had somebody sit in front of me saying that I believe in you. You are going to do this, and you are amazing. And you know what? Because the way our senses work, something goes in, whether it sits consciously or subconsciously, that seed starts to get planted of positivity. And from my experience of having such a powerful being say this to me, it was literally from saying it's over, the next day saying, you know what, maybe I can do something.
So I think from that we can take that even without the structures in place, which are, they're not in place right now, there are still things that can be done. Just in regards to the school, I think you got your answer right in front of you, VG. This is why we did this event, so you can learn more. And the British Sikh Nurses Group, Rohit, I hope you can have a discussion and you can take that forward. VG, if you will, and pass on. And I think, Banji, did you have your hand up as well? So if we could ensure we keep them as quick as possible. We don't want to keep you guys here until 10 p.m. But yeah, VG first and then to Banji. Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.
Just want to first of all thank Sikh PA for hosting this event. It's kind of two questions, but I promise I'll make it.
Yeah.
The first one, adding on to VG, just adding on to that point, obviously educating kids is definitely needed. I think we're quite fortunate in the sense that we've got social media, we're able to absorb a lot of this information on. For the older generation, obviously, my dad's not on Facebook or anything like that, so to educate him, I feel like the best avenue might have to just be the Gurdwara. What about with regards to kids? Obviously, opening this question to the panel, what is the age in the sense, when is a kid old enough to speak about mental health issues?
That's a very good question.
In the sense that we don't want in the situation where 1 + 1 = 4, and you're driving your kid home from school and they're going, "Dad, I think I've got depression." And you're like, "No, son, I don't think you do."
That's a very good question, and if we...
Just a second question, if I can, is that obviously in your background in Sikhi, whether you're part of the religion or you practice it yourself or just part of Sikh heritage, how have you found that has helped you in the careers which you've taken on today? And do you feel that Sikhi can really benefit people non-faith, as in the teachings and the history with regards to the religion?
So I'm going to have to assign these questions to ensure we get through them as quick as possible. With the first one, if Sandeep Kaur, if you could expand, because obviously as a family therapy associate, you probably have that conversation.
I think we tend to underestimate children, just how much they understand, and I think children know a lot more than we actually think they do. And naturally, as parents or families, we're very protective, and we don't want to open up these conversations with our children, because I guess you might be worried about how they're going to see you as a parent. Are they going to feel like you can look after them, and so forth. To be honest, it really depends. It could be anything up to, children I work with, 5 or 6, know that their parents have a mental health problem.
Just to add, I think the thing is it can be at any age, as you say, 5, 6, but the crux of it is when that child is able to rationalise their behaviour and rationalise their thoughts. From, as you know, with development theories as well, 0 to 4, they're not going to be able to rationalise their behaviour. It's a classic situation will be if, you pose a question to a child like, my dad's gone into, your mum's dying with cancer, your dad's gone into the pharmacy, he's robbed the pharmacy, he's come back out, what are you going to do? A child at 3 or 4 will say, Dad's done wrong, Dad's done wrong. But if you get to 7 or 8, they'll be able to rationalise that behaviour and say, hold on a second, he's done it for a reason. And there's a reason why he's done it.
So do you think there is a difference?
There is, in terms of looking at from an analytical point of view, perspective, in terms of theory, there is from a theoretical perspective, as well as just watching children in terms of observational, in terms of behaviour. Certainly, when they get to a point of rationalisation of their behaviour, which can happen from the age of 5 or 6 above, or 7 to above, they're able then to take in what they're thinking about, and you're able to then just make them think and be aware of what they're doing.
But I also think it depends on some families where children might be much younger carers, have sort of where parents haven't been able to look after themselves, so they've started to take that role on very much earlier on. So I think it really just depends. It really depends.
Moving on to the next question, we'll hear from Dr. Ravjot Kaur and Harpal Singh as a psychiatrist and as a psychotherapist. I think they'd be best placed to answer how Sikhi has helped them in their careers and understanding of mental health.
My work is tough. It's not very pleasant sometimes, and being on the Sikhi path has really given me strength. It's given me strength to find out more about myself, my guru, and then also allowed me to do seva much more compassionately, because that was something that I was losing. I kind of graduated, became a doctor, knew I didn't want to be a surgeon, went through the method of elimination, and I really wanted to do something that would help. However, there was an obstruction with myself as well. So then I went for the plunge, and with Maharaja's Kirpa, I was blessed with Amrit, and that I found has helped me. I'm getting there slowly, but it's allowed me to be a lot more resilient and a lot more honestly loving, openly emotional, because those are the things that we want to feel on our spiritual journey to meet Rabb. So those are really important, and I guess the way that I'm doing it is by learning how to do that with people in this world.
I think that's a fantastic and clear answer. I don't know how you're going to try and match that, but if you could, Harpal Singh.
She's more senior than I am, so good. In therapy, you've got to be empathetic, you've got to be non-judgmental, you've got to be open, you've got to be accepting, you've got to be congruent. that is just psychological interventions that we do. Where did I find that in my Sikhi? Baikanayaji. Baikanayaji was actually in the battles used to take a mashak, which is a goat-skinned flask, and used to go give water to those who were injured. He didn't care if it was friend or foe, enemy or friend. It was literally, I see my guru in you, I will help you. That was an inspiration for me to actually work with people, becoming that therapist, becoming that non-judgmental person, becoming that person who goes, anyone can come to me for their problems, I can work with them. And that was probably my biggest source of inspiration until this date now. The virtues of Baikanayaji have still resonated with me, and even going on now, when I get to a stage where I can't do this, what would my guru do? Where would my Sikhi allow me to? What will Baikanayaji do at that time when this person needs help? Will I just shy away, or will I go out of the way and not only give him the water, but when Guruji gave him those bandages and medication to give to them, it's going above and beyond what is required.
Well, I think you did really well to match. Yeah, if you could do
so basically,
very quickly.
There's a doctor that now works with our organisation, does a lot of seva for basics of Sikhi and does talks in schools, Miranveer Singh. So he's a frontline doctor for A&E. And so he's saying, so when he got into it first, and whoever would come into A&E, whether they're suffering with intense, they're having panic attacks, or a lot of people come in due to anxiety as well. So he'd say that he'd treat them as anyone else. They're a patient, they're a number, and you go through the procedure. But then some magic happened to him. He came across an amazing YouTube channel called Basics of Sikhi. And then something happened, he's kept his gears, and it's complete. Even though he's got all that training, he's gone through his old doctorate and stuff, but then he said it completely changed the way he was looking at those patients. And no longer was just a patient, it was another fellow human being, just like Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that, I Panti Sagal Jamati, they're from my class, they're my class of people, another human being walking in. And he said before he'd say, all right, quick, it's just another number, write him this medication, get him out of here. But he says most of them now don't need medication. He goes, I'll spend half an hour talking to them from the videos and what he's learned and his connection with Gurbani. And he goes, a lot of them just walk out with a smile now. So this is how it's actually Sikhi is helping people in their professional lives as well.
He does actually have some videos, I believe, testimonial online of how Basics of Sikhi has influenced his career. If you go on the YouTube channel, perhaps they'll share that straight afterwards. We're going to actually have to move on to the next question. We're going to spend around 20 minutes on the last question, going 15 minutes above 8:30. Hopefully not passing anyone's bedtime and you can all stay up.